We're live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. Netanyahu urges nations to speak up on Hamas sexual violence against Israeli women on the 7th of October.
You've heard of the rape of Israeli women? Horrible atrocities, sexual mutilation? Where the hell are you?
The European Union faces a huge risk of terrorist attacks over the Christmas period. EU's Home Affairs chief says it is due to the fallout from the Israel-Hamas conflict. Eighth annual Artificial Intelligence Summit begins in New York to delve into the future of applied AI, regulating emerging technologies' big an agenda. And in the Junior Hockey World Cup 2023, India starts campaign with impressive 4-2 win against Korea. On to details now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday said that he had heard stories of sexual abuse at a meeting with hostages returned by Hamas during a recent pause in the fighting in Gaza. He called out on the women's and human rights organizations to act on it, stating that he did not hear their outrage. Meanwhile, Israeli police released the accounts of sexual violence in Hamas attack. As per the individual accounts, victims were tortured, physically abused, raped, burned alive and dismembered. Israeli police said last month it was investigating possible sexual crimes by some of the few hundred Gaza militants they arrested after the devastating October 7th Hamas attack.
I say to the women's rights organizations, to the human rights organizations, you've heard of the rape of Israeli women? Horrible atrocities, sexual mutilation? Where the hell are you? I expect all civilized leaders, governments, nations to speak up against this atrocity.
Well, Netanyahu also said the ground operation had expanded to the south of the Gaza Strip and that there is no place beyond our reach. As Israel continues, it's one of the biggest ground combat in Gaza since a truce with Hamas was called off last week. Its troops have surrounded Khan Yunis. The Israeli forces also dubbed the day as the most intense day of fighting since this ground operation started in late October. While Israeli forces further said that they have tightened the noose around southern Gaza's main city,
60 days after the war began, our forces are now encircling the Khan Yunis area in the southern Gaza Strip. Simultaneously, we continue to secure our accomplishments in the northern Gaza Strip. Those who thought that the IDF would not know how to renew the fighting after the pause were mistaken, and Hamas is already feeling this. Many Hamas operatives, including senior commanders, have been eliminated in recent days.
And the International Red Cross President Mirjana Smoljarek traveled to Gaza on Monday, where she called for a military de-escalation in Gaza and for all sides to find solutions other than military to end the conflict.
The majority of people I met today have been displaced several times. I met people who have lost limbs because they needed to evacuate between treatments, and they lost a hand or a foot because they couldn't be treated in the hospital where they arrived first. I was told today that the North has lost its entire surgical capacity. We have to find solutions to this. We can't turn away from what is evidently a moral failure in the face of the international community. I'm calling on all parties, on everyone who has an influence, to de-escalate and to find the military solutions to what is an immense suffering of the people on both sides. We have to protect the rights of the people. We have to protect the rights of the civilians. We have to protect the rights of the detainees. We have to protect the rights of the hostages.
Well, the U.S. will impose visa bans on extremist Israeli settlers following attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank. It's a rare rebuke from the Biden administration for its Middle East ally. DD India's correspondent Nick Harper shares more details from Washington.
The US State Department says that anyone involved in undermining peace, security or stability in the occupied West Bank will now face visa restrictions. The ban can also be extended to individuals' family members, according to the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. It follows repeated warnings from Washington that Israel must curb violence by Israeli settlers against Palestinians. Blinken said the US had underscored to the Israeli government that it needs to do more to hold accountable those who perpetrate violence. The restrictions begin with immediate effect, and the State Department says more could be added in the coming days. It means anyone who's committed violence who already has an existing US visa will be told it's been revoked. Dozens of Israelis are expected to be affected by the new restrictions. The UN says attacks against Palestinians has more than doubled since the Hamas attack on October the 7th. Israel has occupied the West Bank since 1967. That was the Middle East War. It's an area that Palestinians say should be at the core of an independent Palestinian state. In the decades since, Israel has built Jewish settlements, something that many countries rule as illegal. The punishment is a rare one, with the Biden administration staunchly backing Israel since the Hamas attack. But in recent days, Washington has intensified calls for the Israeli government to limit civilian casualties as its forces extend their campaign into the southern part of Gaza Strip. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And Israeli forces raided the West Bank city of Jenin on Tuesday. Israeli forces also stopped and searched ambulances going through the city. 5 persons were reportedly injured during the raid. And updates now on Russia-Ukraine war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky cancelled plans to appeal directly to U.S. lawmakers for new aid on Tuesday. He cancelled it as a partisan battle over immigration policy threatened to derail President Joe Biden's request for billions of dollars for Kyiv's fight against Russia. The House Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican, said funds for Ukraine must be tied to transformative change in U.S. immigration policy. Meanwhile, U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said he would try to break an impasse over additional congressional funding for Ukraine, offering Republicans the chance to add an amendment on border policy to the legislation.
I will offer the Republicans the first amendment if we move forward on border, on immigration, and they can put whatever they want. Let's remember here, it was the Republicans who put border on the table. We did not. They have a responsibility. If they believe border should be part of Ukraine, which is so vital to our country, let them propose an amendment that can get 60 votes.
Well, amid a darkening outlook for Ukraine with uncertainty swirling over the passage of major assistance packages, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said Kyiv did not expect wartime support from its partners to decrease and that there had been no slowdown in deliveries of the weapons.
Our partners understand that what is at stake in Ukraine is much, much bigger than just the future of Ukraine. And therefore, I do not anticipate any slowdown or any decrease in the neither attention nor support that is coming.
Допомоги з боку Сполучених Штатів напередодні Білий Дім звернувся до Конгресу.
No one will ever put us at the table with Russia until we ourselves decide that this is the way forward. I think we have proven many times before that we are not the ones who can be hand-walked.
Meanwhile, U.S. Treasury's Janet Yellen said on Tuesday that the United States would be responsible for Ukraine's defeat if the U.S. Congress fails to approve the Biden administration's latest multi-billion-dollar funding request for the war-torn country. Yellen told reporters on a trip to Mexico City that the funding, particularly for government budget support, was utterly essential and a precondition to keep International Monetary Fund support flowing to Ukraine. Well, the US envoy to Budapest sharply criticized the Hungarian government of Viktor Orban on Tuesday for disregarding the interest of its NATO allies and seeking closer ties with Russia. In a speech at AmCham to US companies that have invested in Hungary, Ambassador David Pressman said Hungary has thrived as a member of the European Union and NATO, but feels comfortable disregarding the interest of those same allies and our alliance, including during a time of war in Europe. That disregard, he said, is evident when the Prime Minister embraces Putin. Relations between Budapest and Washington have soured because of Hungary's foot-dragging over the ratification of Sweden's NATO accession and also over Prime Minister Viktor Orban's warm ties with Moscow despite the war in Ukraine. And in a ray of light, an 8-year-old Roman Oleksiy has returned to school in the western Ukrainian city of Kyiv. This comes as another step towards an unlikely recovery from life-threatening injuries sustained last year. The Roman has yet to undergo years of more treatment to fully recover, including surgery, hair implants and ear corrections. He prefers to engage in his passions that includes ballroom dancing and music. And almost 3 years into Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine seems to be adapting to a wartime economy, with people expanding their businesses and consumers spending more despite the ongoing fighting. Although the country's economic output is still smaller than before the war, the World Bank has said it expects Ukraine's GDP to increase by around 4% next year, a sign that Ukraine may have overcome some of the challenges that devastated its economy in the initial months of the war. DD India's Megumi Lim has more from Kyiv.
Rolls of green fabric and spools of green thread cover the workstations of this small factory in Kyiv. Every day, new sets of army uniforms are made here to be sold in military shops across the country. Ilya Yelin, who owns the factory, moved his business from the eastern Donetsk region when the war broke out last year. He had plans to produce clothes for coal miners there, but everything came to a halt when Russia's full-scale invasion began.
It was quite challenging because we had no market and no suppliers. Everything was left in the Donetsk region. We started from the very beginning, seeking new trends as the specialized clothing we produced back there was no longer relevant here.
Now he produces 200 uniforms a month, sold by women who were internally displaced and have found a new life in Kyiv. Ukraine's economy shrank by 1/3 at the start of the war, but as people fled to safer parts of the country, spending picked up and businesses were bolstered by a steady flow of foreign financial aid. The World Bank predicts that Ukraine's economy will grow by an estimated 4% next year. This growth does stem from a low base after the initial months of devastation, but it's a sign that Ukraine has been able to adapt to various wartime challenges. Irina Yelisova's kitchen furnishing business is one of many propped up by government grants funded by foreign aid. She lost her job when parts of the Kyiv region came under Russian occupation, but after its liberation, she was eager to start again.
The primary motivation to work, the eagerness to work, it wasn't driven by making money. It was more about the aspiration to assist people who had lost their homes. Initially, we operated at a very low profit margin because we aimed to alleviate the urgent needs of those who had lost their homes and furniture.
Within the first 3 months of work, she completed 60 projects, including rebuilding a kitchen in Irpin that was destroyed by a Russian rocket. Analysts say the economy remains highly dependent on help from Ukraine's international partners.
All Ukrainian revenues, like tax revenues, normal revenues of the country, are spent on the army, on the military, on salaries to servicemen, on fuel, on feeding soldiers, and everything else is in fact funded by our international partners, partial as grants, partial as loans.
Enormous challenges still lie ahead for Ukraine. These include the costly rebuilding of the country's devastated cities and a government deficit that will continue to balloon as the war drags on. But Ilya remains positive his business will continue to grow. His hope is that someday the fabrics on his factory's workstations won't just be the colors worn by soldiers on the battlefield. Megumi Lim in Kyiv, reporting for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Boris Johnson to be questioned in COVID-19 inquiry, expected to apologize for government shortfalls. Venezuela authorizes oil exploration in an area around a territory currently under dispute with Guyana. And Honduras bus crash leaves 12 dead. President declares national mourning.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political, and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Khurana, and moving on. A defense cooperation agreement is to be signed between Sweden and the United States. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and Swedish Defense Minister Paul Johnson met at the Pentagon before signing the agreement on Tuesday. The agreement comes as the Nordic country strengthens military alliances as it waits for approval from Turkey and Hungary to join NATO. Well, during the meeting, Austin said both countries will continue to learn from each other, building defense capabilities and strengthening interoperability.
We're going to sign a defense cooperation agreement today, and that will embody our shared commitment to the defense relationship between our two proud democracies. We look forward to learning from each other as we continue to build our defense capabilities together and to strengthen our interoperability. Sweden has shown outstanding leadership in supporting Ukraine as it fights Russian aggression, including providing $2.7 billion in security and humanitarian assistance.
And the European Union is facing a huge risk of terrorist attacks during the Christmas period, the bloc's Home Affairs Division warned on Tuesday. Ahead of a meeting of EU Home Affairs ministers in Brussels, the Union's Home Affairs Chief, Ylva Johansson, has said that with the war between Israel and Hamas and the polarization it causes in our society, with the upcoming holiday season, especially Christmas, there is a huge risk of terrorist attacks in the European Union. Johansson's assessment is based on the steep increase in extremist propaganda circulating online, as well as the rising threat level in member states amid recent attacks in Belgium and France.
With the war between Israel and Hamas and the polarization it causes in our society, with the upcoming holiday season, there is a huge risk of terrorist attacks in the European Union. We saw recently in Paris, unfortunately we have seen it earlier as well. We will now make available additional 30 million euros for protection of, for example, places of worship in this situation.
Well, today in Manhattan, AI industry experts will gather for the 8th Annual AI Summit New York to forecast an industry's trajectory. The summit, spanning 2 days, unites knowledge leaders, policymakers and corporate executives for discourse and workshops. Amid a global push for tech regulation, it assumes significance. DD India's correspondent Sally Patterson delivers more details on this crucial conclave.
It's an opportunity to rub shoulders with some of the biggest names in AI. Representatives from technology companies, financial institutes and governments are set to hold talks and then stick around for networking afterwards. Tech giants including Microsoft, OpenAI and Google are all on the bill. Organisers say the summit, held on December 6th and 7th, will showcase how businesses are implementing and financing AI in a rapidly changing world. It comes just over a month after the UK held a major AI safety summit, looking at the risks of the economy and the industry. World leaders around the world are grappling with how to regulate it. In New York this week, the risks of AI will once again be in focus, tackling bias in technology, for example, but also opportunities for healthcare, finance, security, and more. Through speaker events, workshops, and feedback sessions, it's designed to be a very hands-on event. It promises to upskill employees through interactive and in-depth training sessions. And it is certainly an investment, with delegate tickets costing $2,400. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
Well, Britain's Home Secretary James Cleverly has signed an international treaty with Rwanda to deport asylum seekers. The UK Supreme Court ruled the government's original plan illegal due to the risk of Rwanda returning asylum seekers to their country of origin. DD India's correspondent Stuart Smith provides additional details from London.
In signing this agreement, Rwanda promises not to send asylum seekers who arrive from the UK to another country. The Home Office believes that addresses the Supreme Court's main concern. The UK government is also expected to put into statute that Rwanda is a safe country for asylum seekers, despite the Supreme Court concluding it was not, based on historic evidence from the United Nations. The government hopes these two big changes will allow it to bat away any future legal challenges that come its way. The UK has been trying to send asylum seekers to Rwanda since the policy was announced in April last year. It believes that would discourage asylum seekers from trying to come to Britain, but legal challenges have so far meant no planes have made it off the ground with a single person. Over 100,000 asylum cases await processing, and around 30,000 asylum seekers are eligible to be deported, having entered the country since after the law was passed. Reducing migration to the UK is one of the government's main priorities, with Conservative voters by a large margin wanting lower net migration. James Cleverly refused on Tuesday to guarantee the scheme would have its first success before the next general election, expected sometime next year. Labour, which by current polling looks set to win that election, says the scheme is a waste of hundreds of millions of dollars, which could be spent more effectively in other ways to stop smuggling gangs. Labour's leader, Keir Starmer, says his party would reverse the policy if it wins the election. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
Well, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to face intense scrutiny in the COVID-19 inquiry. He will likely issue apologies for government shortcomings while also defending his administration's actions. Testimony from previous witnesses revealed a chaotic Downing Street. This pivotal moment will be closely watched as the nation seeks accountability and closure. DD India's correspondent Ollie Barrett reports from London.
Boris Johnson is expected to use his appearance at the COVID-19 inquiry to apologise for mistakes that were made by his government in the handling of the pandemic. But we also expect him to mount a pretty robust defence of some of the government responses to the COVID-19 outbreak. For example, we expect that Boris Johnson will point to things like the rollout of vaccines in this country more quickly than was seen in many other parts of the world. But up to this point, the questioning of various witnesses has painted a sometimes chaotic and dysfunctional picture of the Downing Street operation that the former Prime Minister was running during the COVID pandemic. We expect some fairly robust questioning, for example, about the timing of lockdowns imposed by Boris Johnson's government. The former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, when he spoke to the COVID inquiry, suggested that he believed that if the UK had locked down earlier, at the beginning and in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, then thousands of lives could have been saved. We also expect that Boris Johnson will be asked about Partygate, that row, those controversies about parties in and around Downing Street during periods of lockdown, which were so controversial when all of the details came out and led to the eventual downfall of Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. We also expect Boris Johnson to deny allegations made by an aide during evidence to this inquiry that he was not focused on COVID-19 at the beginning of the pandemic because he was away writing a book on Shakespeare. This is very much expected to be the most high-profile moment of the COVID-19 inquiry so far. Boris Johnson will be questioned on Wednesday and then on Thursday. The inquiry was set up by his government to try and go through the preparation and the responses by the UK government to the COVID-19 pandemic and also learn lessons for the future. Ollie Barrett in London reporting for DD India.
Well, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said on Tuesday that he would authorize oil exploration in an area around the Essequibo River, the territory currently under dispute with Guyana. His comments came after the recent referendum where voters rejected the International Court of Justice's jurisdiction over the disagreement and backed creating a new state in the territory. The ICJ last week barred Venezuela from taking any action that changes the status quo in the oil-rich region.
We will discuss to create firm legislation to prohibit hiring companies that operate or collaborate with the unilateral concessions given by Guyana in parts of the sea that is yet to be divided. It will be done through special laws. I suggest that in this law, we give these companies 3 months to abandon those operations in the parts of the sea where the borders are yet to be set.
And moving on, Portugal's leading contender for Prime Minister Luís Montenegro expects his promise of tax cuts to secure a majority in snap elections due on March 10th. The rival party is yet to elect a new leader after Premier Antonio Costa resigned. Montenegro said that the proposed reduction of the record tax burden would go hand in hand with the policy of balanced public accounts that the country has stuck to after nearly going bust in 2011 and should rekindle slowing economic growth. He also plans to reduce the corporate tax rate by 2 percentage points a year after the next 3 years to 15% in 2026 from 21% now. And residents in Tanzania's Manyara region are reeling from the aftermath of heavy rains that swept through the area, leaving a trail of destruction and claiming at least 63 lives. The torrential rains caused flash flooding, with boulders tumbling down the mountain and engulfing homes and villages. The flooding has been aggravated by the worst drought to hit the region in 40 years, which left the soil dry and unable to absorb water. Residents have been advised to vacate the area as the risk of further flooding remains high. The floods illustrate the extreme weather events that have ravaged parts of East Africa since the rainy season began, with experts warning that the rains are set to continue into the start of the new year. Now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. National mourning has been declared by the Honduras President Xiomara Castro after 10 people were reportedly dead and 25 were injured in a bus crash on Tuesday. The bus had fallen into a river after crashing into a bridge while skidding on the highway. A mysterious respiratory illness has stricken dogs in at least 14 states, according to the American Veterinary Medical Association. Researchers are still attempting to determine the cause and nature of the disease. Symptoms including coughing can last 4 to 6 weeks, which could be mild bronchitis or could escalate to pneumonia. New York City Mayor Eric Adams on Tuesday announced the launch of an e-bike battery charging pilot program for delivery workers. This will allow an initial group of delivery workers to safely charge their lithium-ion batteries in public. It will test new technologies like battery swapping networks and secure bike parking docks. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Indian President hosts a banquet in the honor of Kenyan counterpart, emphasizes two countries must work together for Global South. Cyclone storm Migjom weakens over central coastal Andhra Pradesh. Heavy rains leave trail of deluge and disruption. And we'll show you glimpses of Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, which reaches India's Agra.
Never stops, where information shapes our reality. One app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back. We're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Netanyahu urges nations to speak up on Hamas sexual violence against Israeli women on 7th of October. European Union faces a huge risk of terrorist attacks over the Christmas period. EU's Home Affairs chief says it is due to the fallout from the Israel-Hamas conflict. 8th Annual Artificial Intelligence Summit begins in New York to delve into the future of applied AI, regulating emerging technologies' big on agenda. And in the Junior Hockey World Cup 2023, India starts campaign with impressive 4-2 win against Korea. And moving on, Indian President Draupadi Murmu hosted a banquet in the honor of her Kenyan counterpart William Samoei Ruto at Rashtrapati Bhavan. President Murmu emphasized that the two countries must work together, not only for the well-being and progress of the people of both countries, but also for the citizens of the Global South. Well, Indian Ocean neighbours, India and Kenya, have decided to enhance their maritime and defence relations apart from strengthening their ties in multiple domains ranging from digital public infrastructure to culture and sports. Bilateral talks were held on Tuesday in New Delhi between India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Kenya's President William Ruto. Here are the details.
India and Kenya took their bilateral ties up several notches on Tuesday at the end of the delegation-level talks between the two sides in New Delhi. Documents for 5 memorandums of understanding were exchanged in the presence of the leaders of both the countries. Key announcements were also made on enhancing maritime and defence cooperation.
From the Kenyan side, हिंद महासागर से जुड़े हुए देशों के रूप में मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी, पायरेसी और ड्रग ट्रैफिकिंग हमारी साझा प्राथमिकता के विषय हैं। इस महत्वपूर्ण क्षेत्र में आपसी सहयोग को मजबूत करने के लिए हम मैरीटाइम कोऑपरेशन पर जॉइंट विजन स्टेटमेंट जारी कर रहे हैं।
A wide range of ties and issues were covered during the bilateral meet. These include MOU for cooperation in sports, particularly athletics and cricket, MOU for cooperation in the field of digital public infrastructure. Extension of the Cultural Exchange Program from 2023 to 2027. MOU between the Bureau of Indian Standards and its Kenyan counterpart. MOU between the Indian and Kenyan National Open Universities. Kenya's decision to join the International Solar Alliance and Global Biofuel Alliance. Kenya has offered its land to Indian entities for cultivation purposes. Kenya has expressed interest in trade using national currencies. Prime Minister Modi also announced India's decision to provide Kenya with $250 million as line of credit to modernize its agriculture. He said India has prioritized and expanded its ties not only with Kenya but the entire African continent in mission mode during the last 10 years.
Cultural exchange program.
पिछले लगभग एक दशक में हमने मिशन मोड में अफ्रीका के साथ अपना सहयोग बढ़ाया है। मुझे विश्वास है कि राष्ट्रपति रूटो की यात्रा से हमारे द्विपक्षीय संबंधों के साथ साथ पूरे अफ्रीका महाद्वीप के साथ हमारे एंगेजमेंट को नया बल मिलेगा।
Kenyan President William Samoei Ruto appreciated India's efforts in making the African Union a part of the G20 and bolstering the voice of the Global South.
That today, because of Prime Minister Modi's engagement and championship, the Africa Union is now a member of the G20. I have also congratulated Prime Minister Modi for his leadership in the Global South.
Earlier in the day, the Kenyan president paid homage to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, at Rajghat Memorial. He was also given a ceremonial reception by President of India, Draupadi Murmu, at Rashtrapati Bhavan, along with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, where he also inspected a guard of honor. Amritpal Singh's report, DD India, Delhi.
Well, an update on cyclone now. The southern and coastal districts of East Indian state Odisha have been put on alert since Tuesday night with heavy rainfall forecast as severe cyclone Migjom moved northward after its landfall in Andhra Pradesh. With at least 12 people reportedly killed, caution has been sounded in the western coastal states of India. According to the India Meteorological Department, latest update, Migjom has weakened into a deep depression over central coastal Andhra Pradesh. It's positioned approximately 100 kilometers north-northwest of Babatla and 50 kilometers southeast of Khamman, the IMD said. The system is anticipated to further lose intensity, transforming into a deep depression within the next 6 hours and eventually downgrading into a well-marked low-pressure system during the subsequent 6 hours, the Met Department said. And for more on this, we have a correspondent, Jay Singh, with us from Chennai for more. Well, Jay Singh, Odisha is on alert with Migjom moving north. What is the update from there right now?
Well, in Chennai, most places, power supply has been restored, and the cleaning of the roads and other public places from the debris caused by the cyclone is on a war footing. Electric train connection, suburban train services, the frequency has been reduced to half an hour, one service per half an hour. However, the airport operation and MRTS and the metro train services are plying as usual, as normal.
Right. As we know, the storm-induced floods had disrupted daily life, leading to casualties and damage to properties. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, the state government has said that in the last 2 days, 73 centimeter rain has fallen, surrounding the city, which is bursting to its seams. And because of this, there have been several incidents, like including loss of lives. The state government says 9 people have died because of rain-related incidents like wall collapse and electrocution. The state government, as a precautionary measure, has announced schools and colleges to be declared a holiday for schools and colleges in the 4 districts like Chennai, Chengalpattu, Tiruvallur and Kanchipuram.
Well, the visuals show dry roads now. How are the rescue operations going on, Jay Singh?
Well, for the rescue and relief operation, The state government has mobilized forces from even the corporations of nearby cities like Trichinopalli, the National Disaster Response Force, and the state counterpart, fire and rescue teams and the police, revenue officials, and a lot of volunteers. Something to be noted, they are all on the job. The rescue operation is on full swing in almost all the places that are affected. However, there is much need to be done in the suburban areas. Most of the suburban areas in Chengalpattu and Tiruvallur districts, due to the gravity of the inundation, the level of inundation is so huge, the work may take a few more days for bringing full-scale normalcy in those areas.
All right, Jai Singh, thank you for updating us from there. And moving on, now let's take a look at what's scheduled for the Indian Parliament for 6 December 2023. Today in the Lok Sabha, Union Home Minister Amit Shah will reply to the discussion on Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Amendment Bill 2023 and Reorganisation Bill 2023, after which both the bills will be passed by the House. Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan will propose to pass the Central University Amendment Bill 2023 after discussion. The short-term discussion in Rajya Sabha, the economic situation of the country, which started on Tuesday, will continue. Apart from this, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will table a statement in both the houses regarding the supplementary demands for grants for 2023-24. And third edition of India Internet Governance Forum, or IIGF 2023, took place in New Delhi's Bharat Mandapam on Tuesday. The event focused on digital governance and also addressed risks and challenges that may arise in the coming future in digital global domain. Deepika Mehto has a report.
Third edition of India Internet Governance Forum, or IIGF 2023, took place in New Delhi's Bharat Mandapam on Tuesday. The third edition of the IIGF was conducted under the overarching theme called Moving Forward, Calibrating Bharat's Digital Agenda. Speaking on the progress of Digital India, Minister of State for IT said that the growth of digital economy under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been exponential.
One of the important reasons for India's dramatic and sharp growth in the last 9 years, and really the transformation qualitatively and quantitatively of our economy, has been Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's focus on the digital economy. Ever since he launched the Digital India in 2015, the digital economy has grown at 2.5 times the normal economy.
The Vice President of Intel, International Government Affairs, Sarah Kemp, also participated in the event and congratulated India for their successful DPI transformation.
I'd like to compliment the government of India for its Digital India initiative, which has become a benchmark for the world. Whether it is empowering citizens with a unique identity and a digital platform to authenticate anytime, anywhere, as AADHAR, or using citizen verification and registration for good governments as the UPI system, India is home to millions of users of the internet and devices.
Speaking on India's Voice of the Global South, Amrita Chaudhary, Director, CCAOI, said that India is leaving no stone unturned to set a new benchmark in digital growth.
There are many countries, I would say the majority, the global majority, looking at India's leadership to lead the voice. Because we have the dynamics, we are progressing, we also have people who we want to connect, we want a safer, trusted internet, we want women to be there.
With day-long brainstorming and deliberations, the participants actively discussed on how to maximize internet opportunities and also addressed risks and challenges that may arise in the coming future. Deepika Mehto's report for DD India.
A Knowledge India Visitors Program by ICCR brought together over 80 eminent academicians in New Delhi. This initiative of ICCR fosters cross-cultural dialogue, aiming to elevate the standard of higher learning in Indian knowledge systems on a global scale. DD India correspondent Kriti Vadhera reports for more.
That we had today,
Knowledge India program ensured the open dialogue and cooperation. Cultural relations play a pivotal role as they emphasize building mutual trust and understanding among countries.
Today, India is the number 5th largest economy in the world. India is the number 3 energy consumer of the world. By next 5 years, India will move to the number 3 economy of the world. With this scenario, with this situation, university like yours must understand India's emerging aspiration, India's market, India's behavior of modern market. I hope together we can build a world by understanding the global civilization, particularly India.
In current geopolitical landscape, the approach of Knowledge India Educational Exchange builds a resilient platform for enhancing international dialogue and cooperation.
We made some, initiative encounters with Indian universities, with whom we have not been in touch so far, and I hope that in the future, for our students and the students from these universities, there will be opportunities to come to Germany or for our students to come to India. So this might be the starting point for a deepening relationship between India and Europe, in particular Germany.
Interest in systematic study of Indian society and culture, focusing on the uniqueness of Indian civilization, has steadily increased in the last few decades.
India is thinking for itself, as it has done for thousands of years. It's been a world leader, a thought leader, and I think it's time to become a thought leader again on a global stage. And the only way you can really do that is to interact with the rest of the world. And it has to be a parity of esteem. It has to be peers meeting, not one talking to the other down. And I think this kind of conversation is very important.
It is pertinent to create a platform to network, curate collaborative initiatives, and exchange innovative educational practices. Knowledge India program has brought together a diverse delegation of academicians from prestigious universities to discuss and deliberate on different verticals. Knowledge India program has not only promoted rich Indian cultural heritage globally, but it has also elevated the understanding of several Indian disciplines, be it Indology, Sanskrit, Hindi, or yoga. And with such educational exchange programs, Government of India is reinforced to the commitment of enhancing cultural and international cooperation. With camera person Ushu Bandhu, I am Kriti Wadhera, reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
And G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant on Tuesday emphasized the success of digital public infrastructure in democratizing technology. He was part of the panel at the Global Technology Summit in the national capital to discuss the strategies for overcoming DPI challenges and discovering collaborative opportunities to accelerate the globalization of DPI.
In India, we put money straight into the beneficiary account in 700 government schemes with no leakages. And therefore what India has done is technologically pole vaulted, and that has been the big silver lining, that you've pole vaulted technologically. And now we are linking up AI to the digital public infrastructure.
Well, the Global Technology Summit is India's flagship event on geotechnology. The theme of this year's summit is Geopolitics of Technology. Nandan Nilekani, chairman and co-founder, Infosys and founding chairman of UADAI, was also part of the panel that discussed India's revolutionary approach to data governance. He highlighted the importance of digital public infrastructure and how it can make difference to the lives of people.
There are many types of digital public infrastructure which can, make a difference to the lives of people, and many of them are not as contentious as ones that where the state comes in. So, one possible approach could be to bring in those DPIs, which are relatively easier to implement or to be acceptable, demonstrate value, and then create a climate of opinion that more DPIs are required.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Indian Prime Minister conveyed his respectful tribute to Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar on Mahaparinirva Day, says Ambedkar, along with being the architect of the Indian Constitution, was an immortal champion of social harmony who dedicated his life for the welfare of the exploited and the deprived. Many programs are being organized across the country to pay tribute to Baba Saheb. Indian Army held an idea and innovation competition and seminar titled Inno Yodha 2023 in New Delhi. Army Chief General Manoj Pandey also witnessed the event that signifies the importance accorded by the Indian Army in embracing modernization and technological advancement through indigenization. Top 22 innovations of the Indian Army were displayed during the seminar, and the innovators were felicitated by the Army Chief. A bike rally was organized in North India's Jammu and Kashmir to create awareness about cyber crimes. Authorities emphasized on being very cautious while using technology and spread awareness among masses about being responsible members of the society. Book fair and an exclusive exhibition cum sale of National Archives of India publications opened on Tuesday at the Heritage Building of the National Archives of India in New Delhi. A number of leading publishers and book distributors are participating in the book fair, showcasing their latest publications. Indian Prime Minister's Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra reached Moti Mahal in India's Agra. The yatra included awareing people about public welfare schemes of Central and Uttar Pradesh government. Free health checkup medicines were also distributed. Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra is rapidly gaining momentum. In order to spread information the benefits of central government schemes to the citizens across the country, Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra was organized in India's national capital, Delhi. A huge crowd gathered to receive information related to schemes and programs run by the Indian government. Also, the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra towards developed India was held in northern region of Jammu's Rajouri district. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Argentina and Inter Miami forward Lionel Messi named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year. Bangladesh maintaining lead, eyes first ever Test series win over New Zealand as they play the final test today. The CII's Business Sports Awards 2023 announced. We tell you the details ahead.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Kurana, and time now for some sports news. India dished out a dominant display to beat Korea 4-2 in its opening pool match of the FIH Junior Men's Hockey World Cup on Tuesday. Arijit Singh Hundal struck a hat-trick of goals. Hundal scored in the 11th, 16th and 41st minutes, while Amandeep found the target for India in the 30th minute in the Pool C match. India next plays against Spain in its second pool match. Canada is the other country in the 4-team Pool C. India has won the tournament twice, in 2001 and 2016, and finished runner-up once in 1997. And Lionel Messi has been named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year for 2023 after his move to the United States to join Major League Soccer side Inter Miami. Messi joins the likes of Simone Biles, Michael Phelps, LeBron James and the United States women's national team to win the award. Messi made his debut for the Florida-based franchise in July and announced his arrival by scoring a free kick in the final minutes to give his side a 2-1 victory. Since then, he's had a profound impact on the MLS, with their stars signing on board. Inter Miami won the the League's Cup, their first major trophy, beating Nashville in the final in which Messi scored. The Argentina international scored 11 goals in 14 games in all competitions to finish the season. He was also nominated for the MLS MVP award. And Bangladesh cricket team are eyeing towards their first ever Test series win over New Zealand as they take time in the second and final Test match in a short while from today in Dhaka. Bangladesh have won the toss and opted to bat first. They are unchanged, while New Zealand have brought Mitchell Sancho for Ish Sodhi. New Zealand are trailing 0-1 coming into the final test. They lost the first test match in Sylhet by 150 runs despite the first innings heroics from Kane Williamson, who equalled Don Bradman and Virat Kohli with his 29th test century. New Zealand crumbled owing to Taijul Islam's match-winning 10-wicket haul. And the Indian women's cricket team is set to face off against England women in the first T20 of a three-match series at the iconic Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. India, led by captain Harmanpreet Kaur and her debutee Smriti Mandhana, will look to make a strong statement early in the series. The squad features talented players like Jemimah Rodrigues and Shefali Verma, who are expected to play pivotal roles. With both Yastika Bhatia and Richa Ghosh included as wicket-keeper batters, India's lineup boasts depth and firepower. Newcomers Saika Ishaq and Shriyanka Patel, fresh from their impressive performances in the Women's Premier League, have also earned their maiden call-ups. The match will commence at 7 p.m. IST. Also, the Indian men's cricket team left for South Africa from Bengaluru earlier today for their month-long tour to South Africa. The first batch of the players departed from Bengaluru: Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Mohammad Shami, Jasprit Bumrah and Ravichandran Ashwin, who are associated with the Test team, will join rest of the members after the completion of the one-day internationals. The team will tour South Africa from December 10th to January 7th to play 3 T20, 3 ODIs and 2 Tests. India are eyeing their maiden Test series win in the Rainbow Nation. They lost 1-2 on their previous tour under Virat Kohli's captaincy. Also, West Indies will face England in the second game of the 3-match ODI series at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua late tonight. The West Indies had a great start to the series, securing a resounding victory over England in the first match. Skipper Shai Hope came to the party after he scored an unbeaten 109 runs off 83 balls to chase down England's 326-run target, which is their second highest successful run chase in ODIs. Hope also became the joint third fastest to 5,000 ODI runs, along with Sir Vivian Richards and Virat Kohli. Having missed out in the World Cup earlier, the Windies now aims to revive their ODI cricket standing in forthcoming matches and the tournaments. And Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology bagged the Best Sports Facility Award in the first edition of the CII Sports Business Awards 2023. KIIT and KISS founder Dr. Achyuta Samanta received the award. Earlier, KIIT was awarded the Rashtriya Khel Purushottam Puraskar 2022 by the Government of India. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.